Welcome to our session on Westwood High School, which is in Mesa, is part of Mesa Public Schools. And Westwood High School is a large comprehensive campus of about 3,515 students. And it has every program that you can imagine, as AVID or AP, IB, CTE, ROTC, and athletic activity programs. And Westwood High School goal is for everybody to be somebody. And to learn more about Westwood High School and the teaming model that they have, we welcome Principal Chris Gilmore. And he's currently a candidate phase of his doctoral degree at ASU. And we also welcome Mr. Kellan Head, who is a lead teacher at Westwood High School. Welcome to you both.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the introduction. And yeah, my name's Chris Gilmore, and I'm the proud principal here at Westwood High School. I'm in my 4th year of being a principal here, 24th year of education. And I can't tell you that this is the most exciting time that we are having right now in education, in my opinion, than right now during this, I would say post-2020 pandemic year. But I have also Mr. Head with us. He is so nicely introduced. He's one of our lead teachers and teaches biology. So Mr. Head, if you want to give a quick shout out about yourself.
Yeah. Hey folks, how's it going? My name's Mr. Head. I'm a team lead on one of the academy teams at Westwood High, currently teaching freshman bio. This is my 4th year in secondary and my 6th year in education overall. And just kind of living the dream, living the dream over in our academy teams.
So I'll talk a little bit about Westwood High School, and like what was stated is that where everybody is somebody, and we like to add to somebody. We have this large comprehensive campus, and we want the students to feel like they're part of a smaller learning community on our campus. And so you're going to hear me talk about that, how we need to break down this image of coming onto a 65-acre campus with 33,500 students, and that you have teachers and you have programs that are of interest to you and that you feel welcome. That has been our problem of practice. Students not feeling engaged, not feeling like, hey, we might live across the street, but this is the first time that we stepped onto the campus, and they don't understand all the wonderful programs that there are. And so they kind of like shuffle between the many different programs that we have. So with our problem of practice is we're really addressing the 9th graders, because we know there's so much data around the success of a 9th grader could determine your graduation rate for 4 years. And we want to get these students plugged into these wonderful programs that are out there. The Mesa Public Schools has just started a new initiative called Diploma Plus, that not only do you graduate with a diploma, but we also want you to graduate with industry certification or dual enrollment credits, AP classes. And so how do these students get exposed to this is a big part of our practice that we have. So you can see, we have everything here. I can't imagine what new program that we need to start. We are starting some new ones next year, but you can see the general themes that are out there. So looking at our portrait of a graduate, that leads to our promise that every student in Mesa Public Schools is known by name, served by strength and need, and graduates ready for college, career, and community. So again, how does those 1,000 students that are coming on to campus, how do we know them by name? How do we serve them by their strengths? Especially, and I know Mr. Head will talk about this later, the struggle that we saw when students came onto our campus this year after being gone for a couple of years. In that one classroom, one teacher model, we just knew that something had to change, because, how do we get to know all these students that are there? How do we serve them by strength and need? Before the pandemic, we still have the rows of classrooms that were out there, and the kids are just shuffling between 6 or 7 different classes, not seeing any type of connection between their classes. It was a new game for them every day. They learn the game every year at the beginning of the week by studying the syllabus, and then it's game on. But during the pandemic, before the pandemic, we were starting to pilot our teams. During the pandemic, we said, hey, we need to really accelerate this work, because now more than ever, we need to innovate and to change the way that we do education around here. And, there's headlines everywhere. A year and a half ago, educators were challenging their own thinking, saying, how could we change things for a better future? I love this headline at the bottom. For a better future for children and young people, we need to innovate. So how do we get students back in so that they have that love of learning again, and teachers love the art of teaching? And that is a couple of our goals that we have here with our teams. But we also know that many people, even though those headlines were still existing, came back to the rows of classrooms, the single classroom, single topic classroom that was out there. And then there's a huge struggle that is going on in our schools today. But we have a great community here. We have a great high school, a faculty that is that we believe is warrior-centered and future-focused. Everything from being student-centered, teacher-centered, parent-centered, or community-centered, and future-focused, meaning how can we get our students set up so that when they graduate, they're college, career, and community-minded. Our North Star, and this is something that I'm just so blessed to work in a great district, a board that went out to the community and said, if you want your student to graduate from Mesa Public Schools, what are the essential attitudes and skills that you want them to have to be successful? And again, it's not the knowledge content that's out there, but it's these essential attitudes and skills. We want our students to be ethical, inclusive, resilient. The skills being they want them to be collaborators, because they know when they go out into the future workforce that they have to have that collaboration skill and working with other employees or students or citizens. They have to communicate well. They have to be a community contributor, meaning bringing people together and contribute to the community and world. Creative thinker and innovator, critical thinker and problem solver. So this is our North Star. This is what we are judging the content and our classrooms so that our students graduate with these skills. And just don't think this is high school. This is a challenge to everybody, all the way down to the preschool teacher. What does a preschool look like with these essential attitudes and skills in your classroom? So with that North Star, I know there's a big conference that's out there right now with Solution Tree, and a friend sent this picture because they know that I just love the Portrait of a Graduate. But even at Solution Tree, Tim Brown was presenting, talking about the top 10 skills that our students need to have in 2025. And again, a lot of the things that are in our Portrait of a Graduate, some things that are not, like our technology use, technology design and programming, but a lot of the things that are aligning that we need our students to have when they graduate from high school. So again, we've been piloting this program for about 3 years. We've had about 2 or 3 teams pre-pandemic. Even during pandemic 2020, we had them. It was done online. We had to change some things around, but then we had to regroup, and we said, you know what, this is too important for us to do. It's too important for our students when they come back onto campus, that every student should be on a team here at Westwood High School. So now we have 6 teams. We're serving 1,000 students. We have 4 teachers per team: English 9, algebra or geometry, biology, and we have what is known as like a career pathways type of elective teacher. And that would be either an AVID elective. I have IB on there because IB is like a small learning community in itself. And so they have about 150 students within that small learning community, or CTE. And I go back to that opening slide. We have many different programs, but the students don't know these programs on our campus or the industry outlook for these programs when they graduate from Westwood High School. And I have on there that each team has variations to meet the needs of the learners. This isn't a cookie cutter system. We have the basic bones, but the team, by working with their students, starts to develop their own type of kind of title in a way. So some teams might have the honors English 9, they might have honors algebra 2, of course the AVID. There's 2 teams instead of biology. They're doing the agriculture type of biology on their team within it. So again, each team has variations to meet the needs of the learners. One of the things that we have found success in listening to the teachers is that they have to have 4 hours of uninterrupted time in order to work together, to do the cross-curricular lessons so that you have that deeper and personalized learning that takes place. And so we had set up the structure so that you have morning teams and afternoon teams. And so our morning teams has that periods 1 through 4 that they're teaching. Okay, and they're all pretty much, they're in like pods on our campus, and we have our own 9th grade building that's here at Westwood High School. The students go to lunch during 5th period, and then our students go to a 6th or 7th period elective, and the teachers have a 2-hour planning period. We set it up as their own individual prep time and then a team prep time, but the teams, they just fluctuate based on the needs of that team. And Mr. Head will talk about that a little bit more. Afternoon teams, the students have their electives in the morning. The teams start their day off in their planning periods. The students have lunch 3rd period, and then they're in that team instructional time 4 through 7. And as you've seen from Dr. Basile and many others, you know, we have these 6 different teams that are here at Westwood High School. But up close, I'm going to have Mr. Head talk about his team, maybe a little variations of what some of the other teams have.
For sure, yeah. So this picture right here is actually a pretty great image of what our team looks like. I'm the team lead, and I'm the bio teacher, and then we have an Algebra 2, an ELL, and a CTE teacher. Embedded into our team, we have a SPED instructional specialist who is essentially like the heart and glue and soul of our team. She's amazing, and she brings a ton of very important aspects, ideas, and goals to our team to help us kind of keep all of us together. We also are lucky enough to have 2 resident teachers in my bio classroom from ASU this year as well. And this grouping allows us to do a lot of things. We have about 148 students, I think, currently, and we operate in the AM. So we operate from 1st through 4th hour. And because of, well, let me start. There's basically 4 ingredients that I've identified that kind of make this very special. First one being, we have this block of time. The block of time that we have from 1st through 4th hour allows us to do what we call flexible scheduling. We can manipulate our time and essentially how much time is used for each content area or for special activities and programs and projects. Because of that, we're not restricted by an hour or 55-minute bell schedule. Number 2, we have proximity. So our classrooms are super close together, which is very nice. It makes things easy. It makes those special projects easy to manipulate and change around. Number 3, we have a very unique planning period, and we all plan together. And number 4 is our team. We have people who are kind of engaged with this model and are working for our students to develop these goals for the future. My team is not structured like every other team. Actually, I think it's the only team that is structured this way, because as Mr. Gilmore says, these aren't cookie cutter. The teams kind of started in a similar form, but then as the quarters went on, everyone started slotting in and finding their own special kind of configuration. There are 3 other teams that operate in the morning, so we have a similar kind of like time to use, and 3 teams that operate in the afternoon. But each of those teams has a different configuration of teachers. I know we have 2 other teams that have SPED instructionalists embedded. We have 1 team that's that has a grouping of ELL students, and they have a specialist instructor with them for those students. And then, like Mr. Gilmore said, we have an AVID team that has a large number of AVID students in it, and they operate on kind of a different level than the rest of us. Let's look at that schedule, Mr. Gilmore, if you can go to the next one. So this is a snapshot schedule. This is one example of maybe like 1 week we might do for our students. So as you can see in this model right here, all of our instructional time is split up between Tuesday and Thursday, and then we would be doing an inquiry-based project on Monday and Friday. Our programs are not looking at just standards-based content. That is a very important aspect, and that's a primary focus for us. However, we're also looking at developing these professional skills, these skills for students who can take them away in the rest of their high school career and for their futures. So we have what we call showcase projects that we use our time for. We have cross-curricular activities and projects that exist outside of our classroom time. And then sometimes we're doing special activities just for the students beyond the standards that will be used as supplemental instruction and learning and just experience for them with each of our classes. The 2 periods at the end there, the elective, are also super important for us. Those are our planning periods, and I can talk about those a little later, but that's a long conversation. Those are important because they allow us to talk to those elective teachers that the students have, which historically the students kind of struggle with those freshman year, and allow us to assist them in those elective classes as well, which is super nice. I think we can go to the next slide.
And I want to add, I remember Mrs. Harris, one of the teachers, she's like, in the past, students came to school for their elective classes and would generally skip the content. Now the students come for their content, and it's sad to say they're missing their elective classes, but that's where the power of the teams are. I like to show this one because on Wednesdays we have ASU, we have a partnership with ASU with additional teachers that are online that help students with their ALEX lessons in algebra, and they're seeing where their weaknesses are, and they work individually with students or with groups on Wednesdays. And why Wednesdays? That's our early release day. The day is more of an intervention and enrichment day, and so they could spend some time, again, hearing from another professional to hopefully meet those standards.
Here we have, these are called Dewey's 4 Impulses of Learning, but these are basically some of our core focuses in our classroom. These are what we are constantly talking about in our planning periods. I know Mr. Gilmore showed you an example model of what our hours look like. For my team, in the afternoon, we have 2 hours of prep. You can look at that a couple different ways. Our teams operate together, all in the same room, planning out daily, weekly, biweekly, and monthly for our students, trying to identify ways to embed these 4 different focuses into the everyday for them at school. Inquiry is a huge aspect of our classrooms, and it's something that we spend the majority of our time prepping, trying to make sure we are at the proper level of inquiry for our students, and we're differentiating our inquiry within the classroom so that students aren't getting lost or left behind. Our showcases are basically full-on inquiry projects that start out very guided, and then as we move forward throughout our quarters, we allow students to kind of start treading farther out in the waters, as they say, to see if they can go a little bit farther away from our focus guided instruction. The hope is for them by the end of 4th quarter that they're away from us just fully assisting them, and they're doing some moderate level free inquiry. Communication, construction, and expression. Super important for us. Communication is one of our big skills that we're looking at this year, along with about 4 or 5 others, professional skills. We have been attempting to embed that requirement, that skill into as a focus of our classes. And in the last few weeks, we finally perfected it, which you'll see up here in a second as we start looking at some examples. Construction and expression as well are super important. The ability for students to be physically engaged, to manipulate, to handle things, and to express themselves in a number of different ways are our focus for us in the classroom, and have been leading to some very nice success, at least for my team, for a majority of our 150 students. Can we look at some examples, Mr. Gilmore? So here we have some examples specifically from my team over the last few weeks, where you can see these 4 focuses coming into play here. In the top left, you have what is about the midway point of an inquiry project happening in CTE right now. They are working on developing engineering skills. So they're going through the engineering process, going step by step to the point where they can hopefully, by the end of the year, just move through all the steps without having any guidance. And they're currently doing bridge building. So students are doing individual research on bridges, on the construction of bridges, on the purpose of bridges, and they're filling out interactive notebooks on their own, designing their own models. In the middle here, we have a what's called affinity mapping lesson that happened in my class last week, where the students were engaging in communication between each other, with my residents and myself, about the social and ethical ramifications of cloning technology on a number of different levels in our society. Top right over here, again, we're back over to CTE and then over to English, where the students are engaging with what we call notice, no wonder. So they're speaking with one another, they're communicating with one another, with their teachers. They're also engaging in guided inquiry into, we have engineering, and then also the beginning of one of our cross-cap projects on mutation. Let's go to the next slide.
Hey, and if anybody has a Twitter account, follow these great individuals because I really try to promote them by their professional learning, through Twitter. to share with other professionals that are out there. So some great ideas that they have.
I want to try and roll through because I'm getting excited and I'm rambling. Right here we have some examples from across the hall. This is another team that's been really focused on expression through writing and expression through community. So they're currently working on fairy tales and mythology stories in their class, and they're actually doing communication between different classrooms. So they'll have a class in English who is working on an assignment, and they're going to communicate their assignment to the class who is currently over in math, and they're having to do that without actually talking to them face to face. And they have a project that is going back and forth with editing, I believe, on that. And their showcase, which you'll see in a moment, actually focused specifically on community outreach. Can we go over to the next slide, Mr. Gilmore? This one's from my team, coming back to the construction and expression impulses. These are from this semester and last semester. Bottom left, you have our first week this quarter. The students were finishing up on cells and cell differentiation between organisms, or at least cell structure differentiation, and they were doing a trash cell project. So all of us brought in recyclable materials, and they were creating cell models of eukaryotes, prokaryotes, different kinds of cells from around the body by creating basically art models of them using recycled materials. Top right, one of our favorite projects so far. Last quarter, we had the students do an inquiry-based project on business development. So they created a small business from the ground up, building out their own food truck business model, creating a food truck design, creating a menu, looking at all of the math required to go in and do a startup. And then in biology, they were looking at the actual science of macromolecules and how that plays into nutrition and dietary needs, and embedding that into the menu of their food truck, which is pretty neat. And then finally, my favorite thing that we've been doing are the showcases. So every semester, usually in the second quarter of the semester, we have these big showcase projects, which are, they have all four of these kind of core values embedded into them, as well as demonstrating the skills we are looking for in our portrait of a graduate and professional skills that each team identifies individually. You'll see the different ones here. I'll just name them quickly. Shark Tank It. Without mathematics, there's nothing you can do. There's nothing you can't do. Garden Beds Galore, Myths of the World of AI, Food for Harvest. Each of these was conducted by a different team. Each team had their own ideas and models, and the students basically worked from, it was between 2 months and 1 month on these projects, creating a product that they then shared with different levels of the community and other students. And we have some examples we can show you too.
So this one here is without mathematics, there's nothing you could do, because what does every algebra teacher get for about 4 months or maybe the whole year? What are kids asking their teacher? Why do I need to learn this? And so she basically posed that question, you know, find me a career or something out there that there's math is not related to. And so their statement is, without mathematics, there's nothing you could do. The students came up with all the different careers that they had to do, and they created it within this this honeycomb. They went over the Fibonacci sequence, and they learned the ecology with the Fibonacci sequence with bees in their biology class. And then we also brought it into a Fibonacci poem within English that they had to create. And again, creative agency, you're like, who's this kid over here with a bullhead on their head? Basically, this student said why math is important for the future of our nature preservation. And so he did this great PowerPoint about how we need to know math for the future of nature. And of course, he just made it a little bit more fun by putting the bull head on him. But we've invited parents to come in. We invited board members to come in, district officials, other teams to come in, and they had to communicate their learning to other people.
Right here, we have examples from two of the other teams. You're seeing the end product of a project that took the course of 2.5 weeks that focused on the controversy of artificial intelligence. And then in the top right, you're seeing the end product of a group that was looking at a cross-curricular between English and math. English and math, where they created basically a story, a alternate timeline story around a classic Greek myth, and then created a roller coaster that represented the rise and fall of action and plot in that story, and they had to calculate the acceleration and slope of the marble, which was the character as it moved through the story. And then they presented that to individuals who came in and talked to them. They presented it to other students. They presented it to parents from just members. We had a couple members of the community who stopped in, as well as admin, and we had individuals from the district level who were coming in and looking at it as well. The other pictures in here are all of the products the students created around their view, their stance on AI. My favorite one is this bottom left down here. You can see the cell phone. A student created a Twitter page to basically voice different aspects or different opinions, insights on AI and its development and its effect on the future. I think the next slide, we get a closer image of what the students who were working on the mythology project. Yep. So you see a group of these students who are essentially walking the students through the story, as well as the math involved in the progression of the story. And I think we have one more, don't we? Or is that all of them?
Yep. Nope. We have this one here. So we talked a little bit about the community educator piece, and we're just starting that right now with our teams because we just understand the power of what a community educator could bring in. You know, Mr. Head could talk about biology all day long, but it would be great to have someone, if he's talking about riparian preserves, maybe someone from the Arizona Game and Fish to come in and talk about the reintroduction of Gila trout and why the riparian preserve is essential for the future of the Gila River trout. And so showing that connection between what they're learning and what their future might hold. And so in that career exploration class, they looked at students' natural abilities, their natural strengths and talents, and does that match with what you really want to do? And we go back to their 8th grade self. Okay, I want to be a vet. All right, but I found out my natural abilities don't match up to what a vet needs to be. Maybe it needs to be this profession. And they start exploring those different professions that are within their natural abilities. Then let's showcase all the different programs that are here at Westwood High School and go explore those and go talk to those teachers. And those teachers, those CTE teachers, brought in the industry professionals to talk about the job forecast for that profession and what it really looks like, to show the internship possibilities. What does the education look like after high school? Could you get by with the industry certification or diploma, or do you need to spend time at a community college or a university for these different professions? And so the whole goal of that, again, is to get them dialed in for their sophomore through senior year. And right after this event, the students went into 10th grade registration. The students were telling us that they were much more dialed in to signing up for their classes than they have in the past. And again, our problem or practice is, in the past, students would come on not knowing what existed at Westwood High School. And so this is a big focus for us here this past year. So you have that community educator piece, and so we see them as a vital member of the team. We are lucky enough to have a partnership with Elevate Ed, and we now have a college and career readiness coach. And they're going to be working as kind of a liaison with what Mr. Head is doing in his classroom, and to match the industries that want to come in and talk to students. And maybe they're doing some engineering thing. Well, we have Able Technologies just down the road, or Boeing, or we have Bulletproof Diesel that's around, and they can come in and talk about their engineering design. And again, showing the relevancy of what's being taught in the classroom with the real life world work that's out there. Anything else you want to add upon that, Mr. Head?
I think you hit it all pretty much where it's at. I can give an example of how we're going to be using that this semester. 3 of our teams we've been planning this for the last 3 weeks, are developing our showcase for the students for 4th quarter. Our students are going to be engaging with, after a little bit of research, with one of the 17 UN initiatives that they have identified as struggles for humanity in the future. We're going to be bringing in professionals who work in the fields of each one of those initiatives, and students are basically going to be doing a massive roundtable in our freshman academy building, going to each one, asking questions, hearing small lectures, and that is going to be basically the kickoff for them as they move forward. And we're going to be essentially embedding industry level, not positions, but industry level identification for the students, of trying to see who is actually working in each of these fields to make to make sure we don't fall into one of these pitfalls. that we are facing in the future. That way they can use that as a resource for their research and their inquiry on those projects.
So I'll go to this last slide here, which brings us back to what I talked about at the beginning, that our promise, our Mesa Public Schools promise, that every student in Mesa Public Schools is known by name, served by strength and need, and graduates ready for college, career, and community. We feel like this model is just the beginning of something so that we can get to know who our students are, know them by their name, serve them by their strengths and need, and prepare them for the future. And so it's really exciting. It's really exciting to be here at Westwood High School, seeing this flourish. Like I said at the beginning, this is my most exciting time because I'm seeing teachers reclaiming their profession again. You know, they're learning from each other. We're seeing happiness with students in the classroom, seeing teachers happy, seeing the connections between the different curriculum that's going on. And that just leads to, you know, our portrait of a graduate. You know, there's a question in the last group that said, hey, can we come see this? We're always open for tours. Would we have other learners come on? They challenge us with new thoughts, and we're able to talk about our model because, you know, we are striving for something that is new, and we don't want to go back to the single classroom anymore, the one room, one teacher classroom. We see the future in this, and it takes a lot of people to be thought partners. So thank you all for being here today. And again, just reach out to us if you would like to learn more information.
Thank you so much, Chris and Colin, for this amazing presentation. It's just wonderful to see what the model looks like in Westwood High School and what you are doing to support the students. And we have a question here, David Rosenberg. I think, yes.
Hi, Alejandra, thank you. Chris and Colin, it's great to see how this has evolved so much over as you've built it out. Over the year, and also to see sort of how it's playing out with kids and the work that they're doing that is so enriching and exciting. So I'm going to role play a little bit. So I'm at ERS, and so the questions we get are always about, well, how do you make this work within the resources that you have? And so if I were to go to a colleague in another high school and say, there's this great model at Westwood High School, and they've got their teachers working in teams. The teachers teach 4 periods out of 7, and there's a team of 6 teachers for 150 kids. Somebody would say to me, I'm sorry, wait a second. You're telling me I have 6 teachers for 150 kids and 4 out of 7, how on earth do I afford that? And so my question for you is, what trade-offs have you had to make in other aspects of the school in order to sustain this? Or are you benefiting from additional funding or resources that is allowing you to build out a new model that at some point you're going to have to figure out how to sustain?
So that's a great question, David. And I think you went straight for the Achilles heel of this whole thing, right? Because it isn't cheap. But we also know that students at the 9th grade can't be at the same funding level as a student at the 12th grade level. It's going to take more resources for them. In the past, we had about there was a smaller amount of students in our pilots with 4 teachers. The district did give us an additional 3 FTE to make it possible during the pilot funding. But as we were moving forward for a school-wide model, we knew that, well, one of the things that we told our teachers, if you are in a single classroom model, that would mean you're teaching 5 sections with about 30 students in each section, 150 students. Now we're teaching 4 hours with 150 students, so that they knew ahead of time that their classrooms are going to be a little bit higher than the average 1 classroom model, okay? So they were still getting the same amount of students in 4 hours as a regular teacher would be in 5 hours, okay? So that equity piece with the single classroom or a team was still there. They're still reaching the same amount of students. We are seeing that this takes an additional about 5 FTE, 5.5 FTE, okay, to make this happen. So we had to look at some of our electives, and if there were some electives that were obviously low, we did have to make some tough decisions, right? And we had some electives that made things bigger. okay? But we still kept it around that 30 number. But it is a very delicate situation. I could tell you as a leader here, you know, my head's in the clouds a lot with this big vision. I have to have a strategic AP of registration. And I'm blessed to have that on my team as a member to execute this to happen. Also with this model, David, you will see that when the teams are done with their 4 hours, all of those freshmen go into an elective 6th or 7th period. So you got to ensure that those electives are open 6th or 7th, and you don't have a lot of teachers on prep period, 7th period. Well, Mesa Public Schools is notorious for having 7th period, a lot of coaching preps, a lot of team preps, okay, football prep, basketball prep. So we had to make sure that there was still enough electives for 6th and 7th, but also in 1st and 2nd period as well. And so you had to strategize around that. But going back to the original question, you know, I don't want you to duplicate this model at another school. I want you to find what fits right for your community so that the community understands that model. You got to go and find your believers, as we call them, find those teachers that are open to new ideas, and maybe just team an English and a social studies teacher together. And those students share a roster with each other. And then just slowly start to build it out to see what is possible on your campus. So you're right, it does require additional funding, but we also know that 9th graders are crucial, that we need to provide them with more resources.
Yeah, thank you. And I just want to say back to what I think I heard about the hard trade-offs, because this is the stuff that leaders in your position, when they're willing to make, they can do cool stuff. And so the things I heard from, I'm gonna set aside these at a net increase in resources for a second, because that's the thing we got to deal with. Mm-hmm. But what especially in Arizona, but what I did hear you say is you are willing to increase class sizes for core in 9th grade because you have the team structure. You increased class sizes for many of your electives, and you eliminated some low enrollment electives to repurpose FTE.
Correct.
Those are huge trade-offs that are also running counter to the traditional way of doing school, that I think sounds like really powerful enablers of what you're doing. So thank you for sharing.
And I want to go back, and I don't want that we've increased sizes in the electives. We maximized to make sure that they were still around that 30 number. It's not like we pushed them up to 40 or anything like that.
Yeah, no, but you weren't going to tolerate 12 kids in a class or an elective teacher teaching 4 periods or 3 periods when they could be teaching more. Yep, absolutely. Thank you. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, David. If you have any additional questions, you can use the chat, or you can just raise your hand, or you can just unmute. We probably have time for one more or a couple more questions, and then we have the closing session.
Looks like there are 2 in the chat right now.
There's a question from Rosemary. It says, how did you maintain this during the pandemic?
That was very tricky. So we went into it. I know Mr. Head was on one of the original 3 teams that we're still piloting last year. But with the switch between in-person, virtual, hybrid, then we had pretty much 2 campuses during 2nd semester that students chose to be completely virtual. We got rid of the hybrid teaching. We pretty much had to disband the team 2nd semester last year because it was hard. I mean, Mr. Head would have teams, but some students chose to be in person and some went virtual. And so of course God bless our AP of registration. Again, another, like I said earlier, to David's question about being critical to strategize this, they had to do like 4 master schedules last year for a campus of 3,500. And it was just too hard to keep that going during 2nd semester. But we told Mr. Head, and I remember this clearly, this isn't going away, that we still want you to be a team and help us create this for this school year.
Right. So I'm going to follow up. It's me. I asked the question, how about teacher shortages? How are you dealing with this robust, good teacher-student ratio that you have? Are you experiencing a lot of teachers leaving, like we know it's happening everywhere else, or teachers hanging in here?
Yep, we sure are. And that is one of the real things that that we have here. I mean, we're experiencing it as well here at Westwood High School. And we did have an English teacher that left at fall break. Luckily, you know, we were able to find it. I would say that we have a blessing having a great partnership with ASU and the teacher residents. So we have a pipeline of the teacher residents working on Mr. Head's team, working in a team. And so this is making it attractive for them to be part of a team as well and continue it, because that's who we're training is ASU with the Teachers College is trying to train them to be in this team model. Well, they're going to do their student teaching on this team model. And if we have anybody leave, we're going to fill them in with those teachers that have expressed interest.
Thank you.
This model is also extremely, I mean, as a teacher is, it's extremely enticing. Going from the, what you would say, I guess, the old school model of one teacher, one classroom. Let's say you have, even if you have like a low classroom of like 30 students, or if you're lucky enough to have below that, it's, I mean, everybody knows it's a lot to handle if you're trying to do everything you're supposed to be doing, right? I want to make sure I'm contacting home. I want to make sure I'm building relationships with every student, every set of parents. I want to make sure I have my planning out and that my planning is intentional, and that it's not just standards based, but it is also engaging on every level for the students. When I have a group of 3 other teachers in the room, plus an instructional specialist, plus residents, that becomes so much easier, and we can for the same number of students, sometimes more students, we can give even more than we could in the one teacher, one classroom setting.
And I also want to say that with the 9th graders, unfortunately, high school systems have been set up where 9th grade teachers are your first year teachers. And that's unfortunate because we need the best teachers working with our most at-risk students. So we had to sweeten what it looks like to teach 9th grade students, right? I mean, a 2-hour prep. I mean, that's pretty nice to have. I mean, yeah, we're asking a lot for them to collaborate and stuff like that, but to be creative and to get to know the students, that has been enticing for those veteran teachers to come to this type of a model.
Ms. Gates, Ms. Zins had a very interesting question in the chat right there.
Are the incoming or aspiring school leaders joining your team well prepared to work in a model like this, or do you have a preferred school leader MA program?
Megan swinging for the fences. So I know Megan, she's an aspiring leader that's out there that's doing it at Stevenson Elementary, this teaming model. You know, I love working with aspiring leaders to learn this model. I think there's something to be said about, and there might be some elementary teachers out there or aspiring administrators. I know as a secondary teacher, I rely upon the elementary because they know instruction really well. I think secondary teachers don't know instruction as well as an elementary teacher. We know our content really well, but not instruction. And so my net is out there looking at elementary aspiring leaders to look at this teaming model and to give me insights of how we could do instruction better on this team. Now, Mr. Head, and I don't think I said this at one of them, we don't call our special ed teacher the special ed teacher to the students. We see her as an instructional strategist. She knows the brain, and she's able to get the content that these teachers are doing to the brain and to our diverse learners. And so that has been really critical on our team, is having that special ed instructional strategist within these teams.
Yeah, the one on our team, Miss Owen on our team comes to us from ASU, and we've been taking the ideas from UDL, from Universal Design of Learning, Universal Design of Instruction, and many more, and starting to expand them to all 4 content areas and make sure the students are engaging with these in every core content class that they go to. So in all 4 of our classrooms, they're basically getting a glut of these skills and resources and supports, which we're starting to see the fruits of our labor with that this quarter with these students.
Well, thank you so much to both Chris and Caroline for sharing about your experiences with Westwood High School and the teaming model. We appreciate all that insight, and if anyone is interested, please just feel free to email them directly. Their emails are on the chat. And right now, please join us. Be prepared to join us at 11:05 for the closing session with Robin Lake and Brent Madden. Thank you all.